You're listening to I Love It When, and I'm your host, Mo. I'm a speaker, coach, and connector. You're in the right place if you're looking for some inspiration and you're ready to truly embrace who you are. My intention with this podcast is to help you see that you are so much more powerful than you realize. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of I Love It When. My name is Mo, and today I have the pleasure of getting to introduce you to Samantha Westerwelle. Guys, I'm all over the place today, but Samantha is not. Samantha was right on task. She shared so much good information. So why am I having Samantha on the podcast? I met her when I was fortunate enough to attend a retreat. It was a Hatha Yoga Retreat a couple months ago, hosted by Urban Yogis and Kiana and Samantha. Now, you met Kiana. She was on the podcast. I forget which episode it was, but she is the owner of Urban Yogis in downtown Everett. And so she and Samantha hosted this retreat, and I just had a fabulous time. I've never been to a yoga retreat. I've been doing yoga for probably 10 plus years now. It was such an amazing experience to have someone trained like Samantha to lead us through all these different hatha poses and actually give us feedback on our bodies and where they were and where we could adjust and what we could shift. And I also had the opportunity to drive with Samantha over to the location, the lodge where we were staying. And so on the way over, of course, I asked her all sorts of questions about what she does, and I learned a lot. And so I knew that I wanted to have her on the podcast. She is just a wealth of information, and she's all about empowering you with the information so that you can create a healthy shift in your life. She's approachable, inclusive, and she embodies what she has learned over the years. So here's the 411 on Samantha. Samantha is an Ayurvedic yoga therapist with over 2,100 hours of education that began with her first yoga teacher training in India. She believes that healing begins within, that removing the causative factors for discomfort in your life and supporting the mind and body to function at their best will result in a happier, healthier you. With a focus on fresh food and appropriate exercise, Samantha tailors yoga practices, meal plans, and daily cleansing routines to support your well-being from the inside out. With extensive training in Ayurveda and Hatha Yoga, she seeks to improve energy and mobility in all bodies by providing practical and easily applicable suggestions that meet the everyday needs of today's modern householder, to empower people to move with confidence so that life can be lived with joy. Samantha is currently accepting new clients in person in Snohomish County, Washington State. And if you're outside of this service area, you can let her know, and she's happy to practice with you over Zoom as well. You can schedule an Ayurvedic health consultation with Samantha at ypractice.com/booking. You can attend workshops or visit Kindred Healing Space for group Ayurvedic yoga therapy classes on Mondays and Wednesdays at 4:30 p.m. And I'll put links to all this stuff in the show notes so that you guys can check her out and go to her website. Her website is the best place to get all information about Samantha. So in this episode, we talk about what is Ayurvedic yoga therapy, what led her down this path, all the different ways in which she works with people, how she defines her intuition and how she hears it, and then her top 2 tips that you can integrate immediately that will impact your health starting tomorrow. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear this episode. Please reach out and feel free to connect with Samantha through all of the links that I'll give you down below. Enjoy. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of I Love It When. I am so excited today to introduce you to a new friend of mine, Samantha Westerwelle. Did I pronounce that right? I just realized I
Yes.
didn't ask you that before. Yay. Samantha, I am so excited to have you on the podcast to share everything and anything about you. Can you just start off by sharing with everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm an Ayurvedic yoga therapist, and I've only recently been more comfortable saying that. I think it feels like a mouthful, it sounds like a mouthful, but it's landing a little more these days. So I teach one-on-one yoga sessions, do a little bit of health counseling and meal planning for people, as well as lead group yoga classes in Snohomish County, so a couple different studios in the area.
Okay. And that actually leads right into my first question. What is Ayurvedic yoga therapy? I have a
Mhm.
basic understanding of Ayurvedic, but not really much beyond. So for those that are listening,
Yeah.
if they don't know, how would you describe? what it is.
So Ayurveda is a sister science to yoga. So many people at this point, especially in Western cultures, have heard of yoga, have a basic understanding or even an intermediate understanding of posture work, breath work, meditation, what it does for the body, what it does for the nervous system. Ayurveda is just as old, if not a little older, and overlaps with yoga and its philosophy in the movement and the breathwork and the meditation. But where it drifts a little further or adds depth or complements, if you will, yoga practices is in food and lifestyle cleansing.
Mm,
So what that means is every day, someone brushes their teeth. That's a pretty natural hygienic routine that everybody does. There's one for the tongue. There's one for the nose. That's neti pot. A lot of people have heard neti pot at this point too.
mm-hmm.
There's one for the throat. There's one for the stomach. There's a little bit of cleansing that you can do every day depending on your dosha, depending on the health experiences you might have on a weekly basis, daily basis, monthly basis. And so the Ayurvedic practices overlap and add depth to keep the body, the mind, and the emotional state really clean, just clean, free of blockages, free of disturbances, just clean pathways so that energy can travel freely.
Okay, so that's essentially the goal of Ayurvedic is clear, clear, clear. Oh,
Mhm.
okay. I love the way, actually, that's going
Yeah.
to stick with me. Then it's like, I've not heard it explained like that before. What's a dosha?
Yeah, doshic theory is a concept, it's a theory in Ayurveda. So, a dosha itself is an experience or a state of being. So, if
Mm,
I'm currently experiencing my vata dosha, people hear the vata, the pitta, and the kapha. My vata dosha is encouraging or um, an interpretation of air and ether experiences. So maybe that's excess thought, like spinning thoughts, or even really inventive thoughts, really imaginative thoughts, or that's a mental space. In the body, it could be inability to sit still, right? Like I'm always on the go, or I'm fidgety, or
mhm,
I just need to be standing all the time, something like that. It could be a digestive experience. It could be constipation, lots of air and bloating in the stomach or in the GI tract. Um, in balance, it's really imaginative. It's like I always have an idea for something. I'm always traveling. I'm very exploratory. Out of balance, it's very much more in the anxiety space or discomfort in my digestion from that constipation standpoint. Like
mm,
it's a state of being. If I'm talking about pitta dosha, that's the fiery and watery side of people or side of your emotion or side of your mental state. So immediately in balance, I think of action and drive and passion. Out of balance, I think of anger, right? Like sharp, quick, kind of hurtful, whether that's to the self or to someone else. And in a digestive state, that could be diarrhea, that could be gastric emptying or acid reflux. And yeah, anything watery or fiery is metabolic, it's transformative in the body. So if you're taking in some sort of wisdom in any capacity and you're changing it to something you can use in the body or in the mind, that's that transformation space. And
mhm,
then kapha dosha, that experience or that state in the body is much more earthy, grounded, more heavy. It has earth and water. So vata is air and ether, pitta is fire and water, kapha is earth and water. So that can be lubrication, thinking about cohesion or structure, the muscles, the fluids in the joints, from a physical sense. From a mental, emotional sense, it's that lethargy out of balance, right? Like feeling stagnant, feeling heavy. In balance, it's that sweetness, that really soft, watery eyed person that's just always so calm and so loving, or that kind of pleasant mother energy that we hope
mhm.
for and crave in hugs and things like that. That's like a kapha experience or state of being. Um, yeah, so I'm assessing. the doshas in ratio, in proportion in each person. Everybody has all three. There might be one that's more predominant or that
Mm.
expresses itself more often as a default in your life. And then we just choose practices from both Ayurveda and yoga, which in my line of work are really one, but they have some varying differences. That will just support balance of those three states in your mind, in your body, in your soul. We kind of balance them out for you.
Okay. I love that. That's going to stick with me. Um, what led you down this path to do what you're doing now?
I want to touch back on that word clear. I
Hmm.
think it's important. And then I'll bring it
Yes,
back
please.
into, yeah,
Yeah.
what led down. Ayurveda's tagline, one of Ayurveda's taglines is all disease, dis-ease, is stagnant prana. Prana meaning flow of energy.
Hmm.
So if we just circle back to that idea that the goal or the ideal state or the balance of your doshas results in clear pathways, clear
Hmm.
passages for
Hmm.
energy to flow, um, I think that would sum it up well,
Hmm.
what we're trying to accomplish with those practices.
Hmm.
Yeah, clear pathways. Um, I did not have clear pathways in anything. I was a kid who had constant allergies, congestion. I couldn't breathe. Um,
Hmm.
Food tasting good was really important to me because it was just not easy for me to smell or to taste or to be comfortable in my sinus cavity. And that experience shaped most of my childhood.
Hmm.
I got into singing at a really early age, which I found helped with like breathing. And then when I went to college and was singing, I needed more help with breathing because I couldn't really take a full enough breath to hold a line in choir, or at least as long as they want you to hold it in college. It's
Hmm.
different. So I signed up as like a extracurricular was yoga at my college, and that was my first experience ever with movement in that way, with exercise that wasn't go join a sport, try out for basketball and volleyball, which were my parents like, that was their path. They loved sports.
Hmm.
All my siblings were in sports. All my aunts and uncles were in sports. I was the one kid who was like, can I just play the piano or read my book or do anything but be in the grass where I'm just like dying?
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, I found clarity. I found that I could just sit still for once in my life and not, I had permission to sit still. It
Hmm.
wasn't something I had to ask permission for from somebody else. It was, I could just sit still. And I actually built that confidence to say, no, that isn't for me. That's really not for me. Um, so yeah, I wasn't clear channeled. I wasn't clear mentally, emotionally. I was just very scattered, and I didn't end up leaving. I dropped out of college from some realizations I had in that yoga class. Amazing instructor, just building the strength to say like, I'm not sure what I want to do, but this isn't it. This isn't
Hmm.
it. I'm not in the right place. I need to go do something else. And I actually dropped my yoga practice after that too. I just kind of left college and didn't touch it again for a little while until later in life when I was with a partner at that time who did yoga every week. And he was like, "Yeah, you should definitely do this. It's good for you." And I was like, "Oh, I tried that once before. Maybe it would be good to bring
Hmm.
back in." At that time, I was in um, a job where I was in retail sales, jewelry. I was studying to do diamond grading and gemology and jewelry design. It was a very creative field, but also very money driven field. Um, and I also realized going back to yoga again, nope, this isn't the right place for me. I'm not in the right spot. I don't know what it is, but I'm not there. It was very stressful. It was very disheartening to be working next to someone who wasn't a team player, who's like, oh yeah, that person's my client. Don't ever talk to them. Like,
Hmm.
what? We're all
Hmm.
here together. These are beautiful things. This person's excited to surprise their partner, their mother, their sister, like whoever with this beautiful thing. and everybody's so cold and frozen about, whose sale is it, and what does that mean if I took your sale and I didn't even mean to take your sale. So yoga again just tapped on me and said, hey, you're not in the right place. Like, this is just not for you. Um, and so I saved up to travel for a couple years. I just, did that goal thing where I was like, all right, I'm going to save up all of my commission and I'm just going to do something else. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do something else. And I went traveling for 2 years, and along that path, I didn't work. I just left and hopped around country to country, city to city. I knew that in there somewhere, I wanted to do a teacher training just to figure out, like, what is the basic foundation of yoga? What am I
Mhm.
feeling? What am I experiencing here that is telling me that I'm in the wrong place every time I tap into it? I'm in the wrong place. Um, yeah, so I
Yeah,
made
I
sure
was
on
literally going
that
to
two
ask you,
year.
what was it about each time you went to yoga? Did you find out in teacher training what it was that got you that realization? Because talking about clarity kind of being a theme, it's
Yeah.
interesting that each time you went to a class, you were like, oh, nope, I'm in the wrong space again.
Yeah, when I went to teacher training, I don't know if it was teacher training then or yoga at that point. Like, by the time I went traveling, I think the time and space away from what was necessary, like what I had to do, whether it was choosing, jewelry because I was interested, or music because I was interested, or whatever. But all of those are means to a necessity. Like, I needed to make money to live. I needed to
Mhm.
get away from my family and my like friends and my environment at that time. That's why I went to college. I didn't go to college to get a degree. I went to college to get away, right? And so there was all these points in time where I was grasping at something to get me out of where I was.
Mhm.
And it was never a thought out choice or ever a choice that really fit. And I didn't think that through, and it was definitely the choice that I needed at those times. So when I went traveling, I think removing myself from the usual suspects around me and removing myself from my typical pattern of thought, like really putting myself
Mhm.
in different places and different and experiences, brought a little bit of oh, this part is me and this part is not me. And this
Mhm.
part I might be interested, but I don't think it's actually me. And sort of paring back and figuring out, what in there, no matter where I was me. And then when I hit and landed in teacher training, it was December in India, and I was I was actually following the sun. I made it a point to never hit spring, fall, or winter. And by the time I got to India, I had forgotten to plan that out. I didn't even think about it. So that was about 6 or 7 months into my travels, and it was winter in India, and I had all summer clothes, and I had all this like fun, loving energy following me into teacher training, and I crashed and burned. They were like, you don't have socks. You don't have a sweater. What are you doing here? Why did you choose to come here in December? They were questioning me, really questioning me. And so was the practice. It was like, okay, you trudge forth with reckless abandon, and what are you doing? You know? So I think the time and space and the contrast really helped me to understand, you know, I was just choosing things out of necessity and not
Mhm.
choosing things out of thought or intention or constructive growth, right? Like, I wasn't putting myself in situations that they helped me. They definitely were all good in
Mhm.
the end, but yeah, contrast, some time away.
Wow.
Mm.
Um, so then after teacher training, when did you jump right into doing yoga, or did you find, how did that come together to where you're at now?
So in teacher training, I crashed and burned, right? It was totally different place, mentally, emotionally. And I thought this was exactly what I needed. Thank goodness I chose to be here. And it was that alignment of realization of like not choosing necessity, or interest. And knew then that I would not teach, actually. In my mind, when I was finished with that, I said, there's no way I could offer this knowledge because one, I feel like I've just barely scratched the surface, even though I've been practicing for the last 2 years. Jumping into teacher training, I was like, oh, this is what it is. I don't think I can lead another person down this path yet. I think I need to keep going. I think I need more before I give more. And I taught that at the end of teacher training, most places will have you teach a class that's like kind of part of your final. It's not a pass fail or anything, it's just to expose you to teaching. You just learned all this stuff. Now, can you regurgitate it? Can you feel it? Can you give it to someone else?
Mhm.
And I remember just smiling in the middle of class and laughing with all of my classmates, and we all just had a fun, happy moment at that time. I think maybe I messed up a word or something, but it was just a good time. And at the end I cried, and then I kept traveling for another year after that. And I remember I did my yoga every day after that teacher training. It actually solidified an everyday practice.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I came home, which was maybe October or November of 2019 from traveling, landed at my mom's place because I had gotten rid of my apartment. I saved 4 boxes at her house and I was like, hey, can I come home? And I came home and I was home for a couple months and we were just talking about it. She was like, well, what are you going to do? I was like, I have no idea, but I don't want to go back to jewelry. I don't want to go back to school. And I need to just do something in the meantime. And she goes, okay, well, you'll figure it out. No rush. And I talked to some friends, and there was a small studio. Maybe the studio could hold 20 people if we were really crammed in there, but it was great for like 10 people. Um, and I went in there and I just took a class. And the teacher, that very first day, the teacher that day said, are you a teacher? Didn't bring up anything. And it's like, no, yes, yes, no. I just went back and forth for a second. And she goes, but you've been to teacher training. And so she could see my conflict of saying, yes, I'm a teacher, but I don't teach or I've been. Turns out that woman had went to the same exact school that I had gone to 12 years earlier.
Wow.
And for whatever reason, just sensed that I was in that place for the right reason. She was looking for an additional teacher. We ended up talking and I was fresh. I just came home. I had gone back to India in those travels between my first teacher training and my return to my mom's. So I had taken quite a bit of training. I was able to teach, but I was not ready. I didn't want to. Regardless, that woman asked me, and I needed a job, so I started teaching there, and um, I haven't stopped teaching since. Yeah.
Wow. So then how did the Ayurvedic or Ayurveda come into what you offer to clients?
So when I started teaching at her studio, I was still at home and I thought, okay, well, what if I did like this? What if I did like teaching? What if it's
Mhm.
kind of nice, even though I'm nervous, even though it's a struggle, it's a challenge, it's a good challenge. Um, if I was going to make money enough to live by practicing yoga and teaching yoga, that would mean I would have to teach, 30 or more classes a week at a variety of studios because maybe just one studio offers 30 classes and they're not going to have everybody go through the same teacher. I'm just doing the math. I was just looking up, what's possible if this was a career. Is it even possible to make it a career?
Mhm.
And I just looked at different avenues. Yoga therapy was one avenue, going back to a university track and actually getting a degree, whether it's a bachelor's or a master's in yoga. Um, what other adjacent fields are there? I really like to cook. Is there a way to combine cooking and movement? And, Western school of thought would be nutritionist, personal trainer, physical therapist, something like that. So I looked up the yoga version of all of those things. And there's a program in Portland that fused Ayurveda and yoga together, which sounded perfect to me
Mhm.
because actually being on the other side, having them separate misses the point, in my
Mhm.
opinion, right? Sure, I can eat as clean of food, simple ingredients, organic, and, what's supposedly good for me all day long. But if I don't move, is my digestion working efficiently? Maybe, maybe not.
Mhm.
Or I can exercise to my heart's content, but if I'm not eating well, is my body feeling all right? Is it feeling well? Or am I
Mhm.
just kind of pushing that ball back and forth? And this program fused it together. This one was incredible. It's Susan Bass in Portland. She has her own little school and does quite a few different programs. But um, I moved there, got out of my mom's place, moved there, moved in with a couple of roommates to, be able to afford it at that time, having done nothing but taught a few classes in a yoga
Mhm.
studio. And I just went hard in the paint, living, breathing, teaching yoga and Ayurveda. And that was 2020. So I was able to actually do that without any interruption because we were home. So I taught online, I taught in person. I cut out meat, dairy, sugar, alcohol for that almost whole year. I would say 8 months of it. Um, and I just lived and breathed Ayurveda as I was studying it in real time. And from there on, I couldn't stop the Ayurveda piece either. I thought it was such a beautiful fusion. And I ended up taking her 300 hour and her 800 hour and the yoga therapy portion of that as well, just to continue integrating, fusing them together. They're not one without the other comfortably, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This feels like kind of a random question, but it just is sticking with me. Why do you feel
Mm.
like you were led down this path?
Yeah, I think that's a question I ask myself pretty often because I'll wake up some days and I'll do I want to teach today? Do I want like, nobody's been listening to these food things that we've been talking about in all of our sessions. Is this really where I'm supposed to be?
Mhm.
Um, I still don't know the answer to that question.
Mhm.
I still don't know if given the choice at that time, I would have chosen to do this. I still don't know if um, there's something else I might do one day, but what I'm realizing every time I put myself into the practice is there's nothing saying not to. And
Mhm.
every time I do something else, there are so many signs saying, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And so I continue to follow this path and follow this path, meaning I do have some agency, right? I have
Mhm.
what I really love is puzzles and figuring things out, like problem solving. So at the current moment, in Ayurveda and yoga and in this practice that I'm building for myself as my main source of income is how to make it accessible for people.
Mhm.
And so when you ask me like how I was led down this path, I think the real root of that lies somewhere in my skill set as a human in
Mhm.
this current field,
Mhm.
in its present expression as well, because there are a lot of yoga teachers out there and all incredible in their own way. And Ayurveda is growing right now in the US and around the world, but in the US especially, it is on its way up. And there are a lot of misconceptions or confusing points of data
Mhm.
out there around how these practices work and how um, they're meant to heal or cure or whatever that might be. And
Mhm.
what I keep running into is that when I explain things, people understand it.
Mhm.
And when I suggest practices, they work.
Mhm.
And so, whether I'm meant to be on this path or not, for Ayurveda's sake or yoga's sake, I feel that my skill set in being able to think about things in a certain way and give them in a certain way
Mhm.
is working with this field at this time in this place.
Mhm.
So I don't know the answer, but
No, that's a good answer. I
yeah.
appreciate that. What are some of the results that you've seen with people that you've worked with when you give them some of these things to do? What kind of an impact have you seen? it make?
So I would say my core set of clients have been with me anywhere from 2 to now 5 years.
Okay.
And that's my, not the people who come in and try it and come out.
Mhm.
And, I'm consistently getting clients that will probably end up staying in that range as well. But this is my 5th year, and I have a good like 10 that have been here for either 2, 3, or 5 years. And I'll just share one main story that I think I've seen the biggest impact, not just physically, but also mentally and from a soul level. Um, each client has their own little thing that improves. Sometimes it's very physical, sometimes it's very mental, like their perspective on life, something like that might shift. But this person, this woman, she came to me with arthritis in the thoracic spine, so the center, between the shoulder blades, like bra line to shoulder blades, that kind
Mm.
of area. So her arthritis is concentrated there. But what that meant for her body is that she couldn't turn more than an inch or so to left or to the right of her.
Wow.
And so that prohibited her from driving. That prohibited her from sitting at a table and having conversations without turning her whole body.
Mhm.
Um, Picking anything up off the ground or even looking down, those kinds of things were totally limited mobility, basically. And for someone like her who is proactive, reactive, driven, nothing stands in her way. She grew up in a time where women were just a whisper in the workplace, and that was not okay with her. She very achieved, very accomplished, worked in Congress, etc. Like very accomplished human being. From a mental standpoint, for her body to be limiting her ability was just unacceptable.
Mhm.
So, and she's a person who didn't believe that yoga or Ayurveda or any of that was even real. It was like, no, this doesn't work. I'm a Western medicine person all the way. And it was a PT, it was a physical therapist who recommended yoga to her. And thank goodness. We say this every day. We're like, that person helped you. And she's like, no, you're
Mhm.
helping. I was like, no, that person saved your life, and you listen. So biggest impact was her mental and emotional state, which I'll talk about next, but just from a physical standpoint, because I think it's really relatable. Just over the course of a year, she was able to turn probably more like 4 or 5 inches versus 1 or 2, just in the course of the first year.
Mm.
Second year, even into third year, she built that practice into an everyday practice. So, yes, we're meeting maybe once a week, but she's practicing every day on her own in between. And over that second and third year, by doing that, she noticed that when she woke up in the morning, there was a big change. Not just, okay, I wake up, I feel exactly the same. I do my yoga practice, I feel better. No, now there is a physiological, systemic change. Now, when she wakes up in the morning, there's not that instant stiffness or achiness or pain, even when moving her body, even just to get up out of bed. That bar moved. She was able to get out of bed comfortably and do her yoga practice and feel even better.
Mm.
So that's just that first 3 years physically. Now, let's just say this year, this lady has 2 grandchildren and is carrying them around, picking them up, playing with them, like on the floor, standing,
Wow.
from a physical standpoint, totally mobile, barely limited from her arthritis.
Okay.
Limited, but barely limited. She
Mhm.
doesn't feel limited, which is the most important part. Is the limitation she does have, she's not fearful of them. She's
Mhm.
not like preventing herself or hesitating to do something because of those limitations. She feels fully capable no matter what. And that's not because her body can actually always do it. It's because she has the tools to recover and she's not afraid.
Mhm.
So her fears and her perception of aging, right? She had this big uh, frustration around being an old lady.
Mhm.
and these are her words. I don't want to be an old lady. And what that meant to her was, I can't
Mhm.
do anything. I'm sad. Whatever those things are, her negative perception of an old woman. She's embodying a totally different old woman now
Mhm.
and sharing that. So not just the physical things from a physical practice, incorporating some of the changes in diet and incorporating the breath work and making it an everyday commitment to herself. She's a totally different perceived person now. Yeah.
Amazing. I
Yeah.
love that. That the mental piece of it that you talk about, I recognize how important that is to healing and then also just to maintaining, I think, whatever it is that that person envisions is what they want in their life. It's really a key piece to it. So I love that that came out for her too in that story.
Yeah. I think that was the most surprising piece for her. I think she solely was using yoga to be mobile,
Mhm.
to be able to go on her kayak, to be able to, play with her grandchildren. And what surprised her was, oh, I think differently about myself.
Mhm.
I wake up each day differently. I take a breath when I'm frustrated, like there's
Mhm.
just the little things that start to creep in. Um, yeah, and I think that piece of the puzzle is what's most common shared from clients as far as
Mhm.
impact goes across the board. Oh, now I actually sit down while I'm eating. I'm not eating on the
Mhm.
go or in the car anymore. And that wasn't even something that we talked about in our
Mhm.
session. It was just something that's, adjacent that, oh, I'm applying this mindfulness to my mealtime.
Mhm.
Yeah, just the little things that creep in.
Can you share a
Mm.
bit more about all these sorts of other ways that you work with people too? Because I know one-on-one work is some of your favorite, but I know that you do teach classes around the Everett, Washington and beyond area. You've been doing retreats. I went to one of your retreats a couple weeks ago. Can you just share about the variety and ways in which people can work with you?
Yeah. So my passion project has become continuing education. And what I mean by passion project when I say that is I'm constantly giving energy to like different parts of my business at different times,
Hmm.
not to detract from the other parts of the business and how I see people, but there's a fuel that happens and it kind of shifts like a flame. And um, when I started, it was studio classes, group classes in the Portland area. And then I transitioned to private yoga sessions, one on one yoga work, which I still do both of those, but now in the Everett, Snohomish County area. So you can find me at group classes in Marysville, Everett, Arlington, Marysville, Everett, Arlington at the moment, group studio classes. And then I still do private sessions, one on one for yoga, but those private sessions have evolved. So now they include Ayurveda, which is mostly health counseling. You come in, we do a health history intake, and we talk about what you're currently experiencing and what ways we can adjust your lifestyle to be in balance for your experience, right? Something more blissful, gentle, clear, whatever those experiences you're hoping to experience, we're going to adjust your lifestyle for that. Um, so health counseling, right? But continuing education is my new passion project,
Hmm.
which is leading leaders. If you are, whether you are a person who's practiced yoga for 20 years or 2 days, you're a leader when you're starting to shift your intention into learning more about what you want, um, whether that's yoga or any other field. And so I found that my joy of one on one practice is the conversation around what, why, how, when, and the experience of a group class is how more people get access to this information and share and grow in their practice, whether it's between each other in the group or between facilitator and student. And so, continuing education, meaning I'm leading leaders, leading people who want to integrate these practices into their life and maybe share them with others or into their modalities as well. um, lands in retreats and workshops. So at the moment, I'm leading a digestive series class, so 6 weeks. And those who attend who are already teachers get continuing education credits. Those who attend who are not teachers still get the packet and the information and get to go through the process all together. And I find that that way of learning and that way of teaching for me is so joyful. It's so I just get delighted. I'm just excited about it. So yeah, so workshops, retreats, one-on-one, whether it's health counseling, private yoga. I offer Ayurvedic treatments now, oil treatments, herbal treatments. They're all listed on my website. And is that it? Group classes, studio group classes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm popping in for a moment to let you know that if you're interested in working with me one on one in a small group, or you'd like to attend one of my upcoming retreats, please reach out or add yourself to my email list. You can go to iloveitwhen.org and scroll to the bottom where you'll see there's a spot to sign up. I also love to speak, teach, and create experiences for small, medium, or large size companies. If you know someone that I should know, please connect us. I'm looking to utilize I Love It When to create global change, and that will require collaborating with all of you. You're all so much more powerful than you realize. Remind yourself of that today. I always like asking people about how they describe intuition. And I know you and I had a great conversation, covered a lot of different topics on the way to the retreat that we went to, that you led us on. But I'm wondering if you can share with the people listening, how do you describe your intuition, what it is, and how it's played a part in getting you to where you are today, or even in the work that you do?
Mm. It's difficult for me to describe intuition itself. I think that might be true for many people, but what comes to mind when I think of intuition is that both courage and trust are required to tap into it. So I've been working on my courage this whole path of being led or drawn or walking into yoga and Ayurveda as a lived practice, not just my career, but also my life. Um, and did intuition guide me there, or do I follow my intuition when working with clients? The answer is yes. But can I pinpoint those moments where intuition was exactly what I felt? I'm not sure. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure. What I do know is that I've had to trust that walking this direction is going to work out in a way that will be positive for my life and positive for other people. And every time I've trusted that, it works out. And when I find the courage to continue to practice or continue to dedicate time to others in this practice, or find the courage to step away from the things that distract me from this practice, or stand up for myself when people question, you could make more money, you could I had a friend say, you're an engineer brain, why are you doing what you're doing? And it takes courage to be like, you know what, I think you're right. I think I could have done very well in a mathematic field, in an engineering field. I logistically put things together in what I do. But going back to why I'm here, I think that's why I'm here. I think there are plenty of people who do this differently. And to say that I knew that it was my intuition, I'm not sure. But I know that both courage and trust are required to listen, to hear whatever
Mm-hmm.
intuition has to say or not say.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like
Yeah.
how do you experience your intuition when you do know that it's there? Do you feel like you feel things, hear things, see things, or just know?
For me, it's a very bodily felt experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been able to most connect with it when I know I'm in the wrong place, right? That those 2 moments, 3 moments, 5 moments where you're like, no, this is not right. I
Mm-hmm.
feel pain. I feel discomfort. I feel like agitation in my body. And I think that's why it's a little blurry for me, whether it's my body speaking or intuition speaking. And sometimes those can be blurred lines just because we are an energetic physical
Mhm,
experience. But
mhm,
pain and discomfort are very present for me when I am in the wrong place, doing the
mhm.
wrong thing, wrong time, whatever that might be. Even if I'm mentally excited about something, something will be uncomfortable in my body. And I'm like, well, I can't do it yet. I can't do it yet. Or maybe I'll never be able to do it, but I can't do it yet because my body is like totally giving warning signals, you know? And the opposite is true. Maybe it's not the opposite, but it's that clarity. It comes back to that clarity, that stillness or simplicity. It's almost a lack of feeling
Mhm.
when I'm like, okay, is anything gonna come up? Am I supposed to do this or not? There's nothing. There's nothing. I'm like, okay, I'll do it, you know?
I like
So
that. That's
it's a
such a
very
good
bodily
point.
experience.
Yeah. I've recognized the same feeling of, I think I usually tell people, I describe it as like neutrality. Like when I just feel nothing and I just feel calm, that I know that's my baseline. And so I agree with you. It's interesting that sometimes the intuition is nothing. Like if it's a
Hmm.
warning, I'll get the warning signal. But if there's no warning, it's like choose it if you want it. If you want to do this, do it. But
I
it's hard to
agree.
figure out
Yeah.
kind of like what that baseline is if you can't, if you don't, I guess, sit still long enough to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you make a good point there. The amount of time in pause, the amount of time in pause
Hmm.
creates the space for intuition to flourish. Um, yeah, I'll
Hmm.
just leave it at that. Yeah.
Where's your energy focused right now with your business? Is there anything new coming up? Any events or future classes that you're really excited to share about?
Yeah, this is another just, I don't know if I'm being led or I'm walking into it or both, but the Ayurvedic pieces of my practice personally and as a business continue to present themselves. So last year, I was gifted an internship with a woman that I interned with the year before, but in India this time. So I interned in New Zealand with this woman who has her own Ayurvedic clinic, and her practice is very Ayurvedically based, not so much yoga. She does offer yoga therapy, but it's Ayurveda through and through. And I would say up until this year, mine's the opposite. Mine's very yoga focused, but I offer some Ayurvedic health counseling to support. And interning with her made me realize the power that Ayurveda really gives to people in managing their health. Um, Easy, accessible practices that are all customizable. And the way that she presented that in her clinic was really beautiful. So I loved interning with her. And last year, she called me and said, so I'm going to India and I want you to come with me. And I
Mm.
said, I don't know if I can quite afford that right now, or I don't know if that's the right time. Like my business is still going in the yoga direction. And she goes, whether you choose to use it or not, I want to do this with you and you would totally benefit. Let's do it. Please don't say no. I
Mhm.
said, okay. I don't think I can say no. I guess this is just where we're going. And I'm so glad that we were able to make it happen, that she felt called to invite me. And the internship in India was on Panchakarma. Panchakarma is five actions, Pancha and Karma, five actions. And they're cleansing actions is a simple way to put it, but some of them are actually more anabolic, more building, more nourishing. Um, but they're five great actions that provide a reset to the body, essentially.
Hmm.
And Ayurveda is really great at these oil treatments where we're draining the lymphatic serum, where we're moving energy from a physical standpoint, clearing those blockages, clearing stagnation, because they use herbs in their treatments. And it's not just like, oh, I put some rosemary in there. It's like a medicinal dose cooked into the ghee or cooked into the oil. And those herbs are put into a formula that have different actions on the body. Maybe they're heating, maybe they're cooling, maybe they are. meant to increase lubrication, or they're a diuretic, meaning to pass the urine more frequently. Like it really depends on the formula, but each of those treatments include these formulas and a certain action. And it's meant to complement the other things you're doing in your life to continue moving towards balance of your doshas. And
Mm.
so this internship went deep into the five actions, the five karmic actions that are meant to be more intensely clearing of the body, supporting of the tissues that are part of the channels, supporting of those pathways being clear, and supporting of your GI tract being the center from which everything else is created in your body, your mind, and your soul. So now the direction of my business is starting to include this Panchakarma program. The next one is in April 4th through April 18th. I'll be focusing on one of those five actions. It's the GI tract cleansing one, because most of my clients, this is what they've asked for, is I need a GI tract reset. You know, I constantly battle diarrhea, or I constantly battle constipation, or anywhere in between. When you can do this, please, I want to be on your list. Like that's what people have been asking for the most. So I learned all five, but I'll be focusing on this one as my first go at offering a Panchakarma program, a spring cleanse program. Um, it's self-led at home, but I'll be checking in every day, calls, texts. You get the packet of materials, that medicated ghee, you get the lentil or the grain, depending on which one would be better suited to your GI tract. You get the oils, you get the 3 Ayurvedic treatments and the sauna time after. Like it's built in for you. All you have to do is like follow the
Mm.
recipes and follow the daily routine. Um, but you get all the appointments are included in it and everything. So that's the direction at the moment, is how can I expand the offering for my clients outside of the movement and just the physical realm?
Mhm.
Can we push that envelope a little bit and create a lifestyle shift? You know, can you really shift, not just practice your yoga every day? You know,
Mhm.
yeah.
There's
And the
another
same is
question.
coming up for me. Yeah,
The
go
same's
ahead.
coming up for you for.
Yeah, like I'm also investing more in my Ayurvedic practices at home,
Okay.
not just my movement. Yeah.
Okay. There's another
Mhm.
question that's rolling around, and I'm like, why do you want me to ask? Okay. Because it seems kind of like a silly question to me, but I'm like, all right, do you have like what are your tips if you had to give like one, two, or three tips
Mm,
to someone who's listening who's like, I don't know if I want to do a one-on-one session with you yet, but
mhm.
what would Samantha tell me I could do on a daily basis to start to do to create some sort of a shift?
Yeah, yeah. I think the number one thing, I'll just speak from my own experience. The number one thing that is really easy to add in that just gives you, we'll harken back to this moment of pause, right? Just gives you a moment of pause without, you know, changing much of your routine at all, is tongue scraping.
Okay.
So, tongue scraping, you can do it when you brush your teeth. So, no added time really. You're not like carving out a different time of the day to do this
Hmm.
extra thing.
Hmm.
Just include it when you're doing your dental hygiene. It is a tool. It's usually $5 to $7. You can find it at your local co-op or your local or like grocery store, or you can find it on Amazon. But there are plenty of places to find one without going online. Um, it's this U-shaped thing, usually has two ends that are open and then one that's a curve. And that curve follows the shape of your tongue. So if you were to open your mouth, actually, I might have one. I don't know where it is. Never mind. But you open your mouth and stick your tongue out, and you pull that tongue scraper from the back of your tongue forward. You're not like digging into your tongue, but you're scraping the surface of it.
Okay.
You're cleaning the surface of your tongue with this tongue scraper instead of your toothbrush, because your toothbrush is going to push it in. We actually want to pull it off.
Okay.
And what's really powerful about the tongue scraping practice, not just you're cleaning your mouth, is that now you're looking at your tongue. You're just looking at it, right? You're like, okay, what's coming off of my tongue? Or, oh, my tongue is actually kind of dry today. Or I didn't, does everybody have this crack in their tongue? Or does everybody have this like pale or rich color of the tongue? Like what,
Yeah.
what's the tongue, what's going on your tongue? Um, you're now looking at that every day, and it will change on a
Yeah.
daily, weekly, monthly basis. And that will start to ask or like encourage you to ask questions. Why is my tongue like this today? And it was like that yesterday, or vice versa, right? And other practices will affect that surface of your tongue. As you change your diet, you'll affect the surface of your tongue. As you close your mouth and breathe through your nose at night, you'll change the surface of your tongue. Um, as your as you salivate differently, the surface of your tongue will change. So just by scraping the tongue, you're creating a pause and an awareness around the changes that happen in the body,
Mm-hmm.
period.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think that's a really good one, a simple
I love
one,
that. I've never done that
just
either.
to,
Yeah.
yeah. And again, you can take notes or you don't have to. It's just an awareness thing. Like, okay. And you'll notice if you eat cheese, your tongue will be coated. It will be coated, almost guaranteed. A lot or a little, depends on how much cheese, how often. But if you eat cheese, your tongue will be coated. So just notice, like next time you eat cheese at night, next day, just look at your tongue, whether you scrape it or not. That'll be a really fun one just to take away. Um, I love cheese, so I have a hard time with that one, but it's true. It's thick, it's gooey, it coats your tongue.
Oh,
The other one that would be really great, and I think everybody can benefit from this, is first thing in the morning after you've done your dental hygiene, let the first thing that ever enters your body be water.
okay.
And not gulping a whole glass down. Like, not like, oh my gosh, I'm so thirsty. Let me just gulp this water down. Because sometimes that happens. But sipping a warm glass of water, 6, 8 ounces, just a typical, like, small cup, doesn't have to be crazy
Mm-hmm.
amounts, and not drinking anything else until your body signals that it's time. Not coffee, not milk, not
Mm-hmm.
tea, just water, right? Like, give your kidneys the fresh flush because you've just used the restroom. Typically, most people use the restroom. They've just emptied the waste of their kidneys and their liver, kind of sorted out throughout the night.
Mm-hmm.
And then the first thing you put back in is your coffee or your tea or your soda or whatever it is you put in. Most of the time, it's not water for people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that instantly dehydrates the kidney right there. So first thing in the morning, after you've done your dental hygiene, your shower, whatever that is, just let it be water, sip it, let it be lukewarm or warm, not ice cold. Just give
Mm-hmm.
the kidneys this fresh dose of the purest thing you could possibly think of. So simple, so difficult to build a habit around.
I keep hearing that one of warm or hot water throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
That's so hilarious. As you were talking about this, I literally, my brain does funny things. I got an image of a t-shirt that you could make that's like, be your kidney's best friend. Like drink, drink a warm cup of water in the morning.
Yeah,
But it really
seriously.
makes a lot of sense. Those are like two really good tips that I think would people will notice a difference with. Absolutely. I
Mm-hmm.
can't speak for the tongue
And
scraping yet, but the water in the morning, totally. Hmm.
yeah, I mean, and they're already built into your routine, just not quite,
Hmm.
right? Like,
Hmm.
it doesn't take much extra, um, except that pause. It does take that pause,
Hmm.
you know.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that I should ask you that I haven't asked you yet? Or anything that we haven't talked about that you want to make sure to mention?
You could ask me what's in my fridge right now that I'm excited about.
Okay. I think I definitely should because I've tasted a couple of the things that you've made before and they're delicious. What is it?
So at the moment, I mean, a lot of what I do is talking about food, which is what spurred the Ayurveda portion of my business. At the moment, I'm playing with pickling and ferments. It's something I really like to do, but I don't do it all the time. And this is kind of the season. This is the time to bring in heating foods because we're clearing the sludge of winter, right? We're moving into spring, and we can often start to get those sinus colds and congestion in the next month and a half. Like that's going to come in, but you can start now to prevent that. So, what's in my fridge right now is this fermented plum paste. It's a Japanese style fermentation. It's umeboshi, so it's like a pickled plum,
Okay.
salty pickled plum. And I like to chop up cucumber and toss it in this like pickled plum paste. It makes the cucumber a little salty, a little sour from the plum and the fermentation. And the cucumber itself is a little watery and a little astringent from that crunchiness. And it can be a little sweet too, cucumber, depending.
Hmm.
So you've got a range of almost all six tastes there on just this one little snack. And it's a great topping for like rice or a salad or whatever you put it on, doesn't matter, but it just adds such a burst of flavor. And I have that umeboshi in my fridge right now because I forgot about it entirely for the last few years. And a friend of mine just went to Japan and brought it. It's like, you remember you showed me this and I found some and here's some from the source. And so it's going on everything until it's gone right now. And I'm so glad it's spring because it's a good season for it. Like spring's coming up. So
Okay.
yeah, that's another thing to think about. Just like think about what's in your fridge, you know?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to
Yeah.
mention that to Tom because I think he would love to try that too.
You can find it at Whole Foods.
Okay.
It's like a little, it's just a little paste packet, umeboshi, pickled plum.
Okay. Yum. All right.
Yeah, super tasty.
Well, thank you for sharing so much of your journey with us and what
Mhm.
you do. Really appreciate it. I'm excited for people to hear about this and to start to just gain more curiosity about the clearness of their body. Like,
Mm.
there's so much to learn there.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think what I really love about you and how you present these podcasts is they're very casual. They're like very human. And I appreciate that experience.
Oh, I'm so glad. Well, yeah, I think more than anything, I really want people to feel like how you have described how people feel about what you do, that you're approachable and it's clear and they can ask questions. And um, yeah, I love to learn and I'm a big learner myself. And so I just really hope that I can introduce people to new topics that might be helpful to them in some way, shape, or form. So yeah.
Yeah,
What
agree
would you
out there.
say your current I love it when is for the world or for yourself right now?
Ooh, um, I love it when I talk to someone and they have heard about Ayurveda right now. Right now, I love it when I'm like, you have, okay, you know, and it's always great when they haven't because there's no preconceived notion. But more and more people are hearing about this practice. And I think it's such an amazing gift to humanity in this time
Hmm.
right now, you know?
Hmm.
So at the moment, I'm just so delighted every time they're like, "Oh, I've heard of that. You do that?" You know, it's like it's so exciting. So,
That's
yeah.
really cool. Yay.
Mm.
Well, thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you, Mo. It was great to be here.